UX is tough, not because of the work itself, but because of everything around it. The pressure, the politics, the self-doubt. Joe Natoli has been through it all, and for more than 30 years, he's been helping UXers and designers find their way through the challenges that really make or break a career. Not the wireframes or design tools, but imposter syndrome, office politics, bad bosses, and learning to stand your ground. This is Making UX Work, where he tackles the battles no boot camp, book, or conference ever prepares you for, and shows you how to come out stronger on the other side.
Okay, so last time around, among other things, we talked about the practice of doing things in a way that's true to you. And in the process, shutting down that voice trying to convince you to play small and go along to get along. I told you a story about how with clients, I do things my way, okay, in a way that's real and true for me and that minimizes my risk and everyone else's risk. I explained to you how pushing back on things that I don't agree with is my way of also pushing back against that voice on my shoulder that's constantly telling me I'm crazy, right? This will never work. You're not good enough. Like, why the hell don't you just do the job like everyone else does? Now, let's bring all this back to you and how you operate. What I described to you in the last episode is not everybody's style, okay? And it does not have to be yours. Sometimes, instead of pushing back, it's about pulling people forward, as my friend Rich Harrison says. You do that by getting them to see how acting too quickly is going to hurt them. It's saying, look, I hear you, but let's pause for a minute while you tell me what's behind this request. What are you worried about? What are you worried will or won't happen if we don't do this, or if we do this? Walk me through it. Where are you coming from? Now, I arrived at this because I think confrontation and argument is a waste of time. All right, it solves nothing. So I don't argue. I mean, I really don't. I refuse to argue with people. I don't attend those fights even when I'm invited to them. I found a way that was comfortable for me. I found a way that fits me. And most importantly, it's a way that works for me. The point of all this, and this episode as a whole, is that you got to find your way. Not mine, not anyone else's, yours. You can read books. You can listen to podcasts like this one. You can take lots of advice from a lot of people, but eventually you will have to find your way. If you're going to step into leadership and take control of any situation, you have to do it in a way that's natural for you, that's comfortable for you. It has to be your method, not anyone else's. You need to be wearing clothes that fit you, as the title of this episode suggests. Why? Because it's impossible to be calm or confident or self-assured or assertive when you feel like you're wearing someone else's clothes, right, that don't fit. Or when you're trying to follow some model of professionalism or etiquette or, doing something that's unnatural to you. That to me is why people stumble. Those shoes that you've just stepped into are too big because they're someone else's. People say to me all the time, I'm really uncomfortable speaking up or presenting in public. I'm terrible at it. It's a skill that I just don't have. I don't buy that. Okay. And here's why. If you and I are having a conversation, all right, and you tell me I can't talk to people. Yeah, you can, because we're having a conversation right now. You're doing it right now. We're talking to each other. We've been talking to each other for the last 15 minutes. We don't seem to be having any problem. Listen to me. Speaking to your boss or a colleague in public is no different. It's a fucking conversation. That's it. You have to strip away all the artifice, okay, of the rules around how you think this is supposed to work, how I'm supposed to speak, how I'm supposed to present, and just step into it as you, okay? How would I say this? How would I do this? I was asked by my boss to create this report or this document. How do I want to do that? That's the question you got to ask yourself. You got to let go of what the person on the receiving end wants or expects, how they want it done. Who fucking cares how they want it done? It's never going to make any impact if you do it that way. It's not, I'm telling you. Okay? Musicians talk a lot about what happens when you sit down with the intent and purpose of writing a hit song. Good fucking luck. It's never going to happen. All right? The minute you try to force yourself into some paradigm, the result falls on its face, one way or the other. The only thing you can do in any situation is be true to you. All right, this has been said before by people much smarter than me, but there is no wisdom to be found in the collective safe opinion of the crowd. None. And I will tell you from personal experience that I honestly fight this all the time. I still have the urge occasionally to second guess what I'm saying because let's face it, I've kind of made a career out of being contrary. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. All the neat and tidy processes that people tout across social media and all their double and triple diamond glory are, in a word, bullshit. I think all of that falls apart inside the walls of a corporation where politics and power plays and fear and greed make things really messy. And I say so often. And at the same time, I need you to understand that that little voice is always in my ear. Nobody does it this way, Joe. Nobody else says this stuff. What are you doing? You're going to drive people away. Okay? That voice is always there. And I willfully fucking ignore it. Because the proof that I'm not wrong about all this stuff is indisputably clear. In my career, across my entire career, 35 years, whenever I do things the way I think they should be done, the result is always what I hope it will be for the most part, right? Unless I'm being arrogant in some way or I'm refusing to ask the right questions. But my way works. So I have to remind myself over and over again that my way is just that, my way. No one else has to agree. It works for me. It works for the students I teach. It works for the clients I help. It works for the people I coach. I learned this lesson years ago when I first started trying to promote myself. When I struck out on my own, I fell on my face a lot, quite honestly. Okay. And the problem was I was trying to be all those folks I looked up to. I was trying to be Alan Cooper. I was trying to be Jesse James Garrett. I was trying to be Don Norman. Dr. Susan Weinschek, whose work I read and was completely knocked out by, I came fairly close to inadvertently appropriating some of their stuff. And in one instance, I did. Because I didn't have confidence in my own stuff, in my own voice. But when I did finally find my voice, my way, when I made a decision, to just tell the unvarnished truth about what I saw inside the walls of companies, what designers and UXers were struggling with, when I put it out there, the reaction was massive, okay, almost instantaneous. And that's never wavered since. And that's happened for two reasons, okay? Reason number one is I'm not wrong. And reason number two, I'm only ever just trying to be myself, present my take, my way. When you do that, you're tapping into everything that you're capable of. And people can sense when it's real, when it's authentic, and when it isn't. Look, a whole lot of people waste a whole lot of airtime talking about the way they think something should be done instead of sharing the way they actually fucking do it. You understand? You have to get used to doing things the way that you think they should be done. You got to trust what you put out there. You got to trust that it's good enough. Doesn't matter whether it's like anybody else's anything or not, and the only way you get there, in my opinion, is by doing it, by putting yourself in positions where you obey your first instinct because it's the right instinct. That's what needs to be followed. All right. And what will inevitably happen is that, you're going to come behind it. You're going to second guess it. Some part of you will go, yeah, but other people aren't doing it this way. That's okay. You're going to continue to have those moments where you doubt yourself, where you wonder if the clothes that you're wearing actually fit. I'm going to say this again like a broken record, okay? Eventually, how you react to those things changes. And the time that it takes for you to bring yourself back to center changes as well.
Every UXer and product designer I've ever met eventually hits the wall. You know the wall, the one built by managers, stakeholders, or formed by internal politics. The wall that renders every method they were ever taught irrelevant or just feeling impossible. Joe Natoli has spent 35 years helping global enterprises tear that wall down. The UX 365 Academy Joe created is the missing manual for your UX career. It's the much-needed practical lessons for the world you actually work in. Stop struggling to get buy-in and start making impact. Learn more at ux365academy.com.
As I'm pretty sure I've told you, I have a government client right now, okay? And the government, working for the U.S. government is a different animal altogether, okay? As are the contractors, quite frankly, that work on government projects. So there's me and two contracting parties. companies. Okay, one's a sub of the other. I'm living in both worlds. Plus, I'm living with the end customer, right, which is the government agency in question. Now, this is as buttoned up as it gets, and I generally don't work that way at all. Okay, there's certain things that I'm just not wasting my time doing. So they're practicing a scaled agile framework called SAFE, and there is so much waste inherent in that process that I would need another 4 fucking hours to detail it. But I'll spare you all that and just tell you that the biggest source of waste are what they call story pointing sessions, where teams go through each item in Jira and they assign points related to complexity. I'm sure some of you have done this. So we got 16 teams, and each team is made up of between 6 and 8 people. All right, that's how big this project is. 16 separate teams. And they're all sitting around for 2 hours every other day going, well, that's probably a 3. Although maybe it could be a 5. It's kind of hard to say. Assigning these nebulous numbers that mean less than nothing and have absolutely no bearing on reality, nor provide any reasonable level of confidence or detail that anyone in their right mind would ever risk planning to. But this stupid shit is what they're doing, okay? Because the rules say that that's what they're supposed to do. After 5 minutes of this, I swear to you, I wanted to kill myself. Anyway, they've given me leeway to say, hey, it's up to you. If you can make all these meetings and sessions, great. If you don't, that's fine too. So after the first one that I sat in, I flat out told people, look, I'm not going to be in this meeting unless you have something for me specifically. And despite that get out of jail free card they gave me, they still kind of look at me sideways and go, well, why not? Why aren't you coming to the meeting? I'll tell you why, because there's a lot to do here in a ridiculously compressed time frame, and this is an absolutely terrible use of my time. If you want to deliver in 60 days, we need to be fucking working, not talking. And that got me some hard looks, because I did say it that way. I didn't say fuck, but I did say that. And I'll admit that in that moment, right, when someone looks at you like, okay, who the hell do you think you are? That voice pops up in my head. All the other kids are going, Joe, why aren't you? No one else has a problem with the rules except you, Joe. Maybe you won't be consulting here much longer. But here's the thing, I have several decades of proof that this isn't going to work, that it's going to end badly, and that I will be taking some of the blame for that if I go along to get along. So my truth is that this bullshit is just not my way, okay? That stuff is an obstacle for me. It prevents me from doing what I need to do here. It prevents me from helping them win, quite frankly. And the real truth is this: to go along with it is completely irresponsible of me as a consultant. And I've told people that as well. These folks are paying me to do the right thing. They're paying me to make the right decisions and to help them make the right decisions. So to me, anything that gets in the way of that, the answer is a resounding fuck no. So yeah, I have that same moment of doubt that you do. But then I remind myself who I am, why I'm here, and of the fact that these clothes everyone else has on do not fit me. So I walk through this in 15 or 30 seconds in my head, and then I'm over the hump. Nope. If it's my call, then we're doing it my way. All right. I had a meeting the other day. This guy who's a product owner, he's one of 16 product managers, again, on 16 teams for this project. Like I said, it's that big. I was supposed to run this meeting, but the man's got a big ego. Okay. We're literally on a call with the customer. He interrupts me, jumps in, takes over, and then proceeds to make an ass of himself inside of 120 seconds because he doesn't actually know anything. Now, I've been hounding this person for a week to get feedback, to get details. I said, listen, man, we don't know this. I need to know this. And we have to have these answers before we get in front of this customer, because otherwise their confidence is going to seriously drop. They're going to be pissed. So he ignored me for all 5 days. Back to the meeting that we're in right now. He has no idea how any of this functionality is supposed to work, the stuff that he's presenting. But he is bullshitting his way through it. And he is literally digging himself a hole because they're getting angry. And they're asking the kinds of questions that clearly indicate that they're angry. And they don't understand why we don't seem to know what the hell we're doing. And I let him go. Okay, I just let him go on and I let him die. Because the more he tried to bullshit them, the more tense the conversation got. And finally there was a moment, a break in the conversation, and there was silence. And that's when I unmuted my mic and I said, I'd like to explain what's happening here. Now, I knew full well the minute I opened my mouth, this guy and his cronies are going to come for me later that day. Him and his boss in particular, because that's been my experience with these two idiots so far. So I did have a moment where that voice went, maybe you shouldn't do this, buddy. You know what the repercussions are going to be. But again, in the space of a couple seconds, I talk back and I say, look, they brought me on to do this. All three of these companies, including this customer, trust me. And I'm not doing my job if I don't open my mouth. So I said what needed to be said to shut this guy down and make the customer understand without saying it directly that I would be handling A, B, and C from this point forward. And as expected, at 4 o'clock, these two fucking clowns tried to get me on a Teams call to throw me under the bus. So I invited two other people that I figured needed to be there. So I let these two guys try their opening rant for about 30 seconds. And then I interrupted and I said, listen, guys, we're not having this conversation. And here's why. And I said it in that tone of voice. And I called up all the screenshots of the Teams chats and the emails and all the stuff that we had talked about that he ignored. I ran the list item by item. And then I paused. I said, okay, are we clear? I'm not hearing this from you. It's not happening. This is on both of you and you know it. So if you want to conduct yourself differently and you want to work with me, that's cool. I'm happy to do that. We'll go forward like this never happened. But don't pull this shit ever again with me. Now, as self-congratulatory as that story may seem, it's not the reason I'm telling it. Okay, I'm telling you that story because, again, the urge to give in and capitulate, there's a big word, not a word I use. I don't know where that came from. But the urge to give in and pretend and deny what you know is actually right, to shut your mouth, fold your hands, wear those clothes that don't fit you. That's always there. The urge to just, play along is always there. So you have a choice in that moment. And choosing to do what you know is the wrong thing is disrespect to your profession, to your employers, to your clients, and to yourself. So the answer is no. Is that uncomfortable? Of course it is. But like I said, if you practice it over time, you practice that no over time, over multiple instances, the distance traveled from allowing yourself to be freaked out about it to coming back to center, coming back to resolve, shortens. Now, the honest truth is I couldn't have done what I just described to you 20 years ago. There's no way. Okay, so this is all practice. And it's also having a different goal other than, when am I ever going to stop feeling like this? Or when am I ever going to stop thinking these things? That's an immediate emotional reaction. And it's a big driver of wanting to just go along, wear those clothes, but it's the wrong goal. All right. The goal isn't to magically erase the discomfort, the genetic or psychological markers that you have at this point, right? Some of those things aren't changing, period. So the goal is to change how you react to them. The goal is to shorten the time in which they inhabit your body and your mind and your heart. That's the goal. And by the way, if you need space to walk through that when it happens, then you fucking take the time. Let them wait. I'm serious. I learned this from my father, okay, who I think I told you about before. He's an engineer. He's the type of person where on an extreme level, anywhere from 60 seconds to 20 minutes will go by after you've asked him a question. You may have moved on to something else, but his brain is still in that conversation that took place 20 minutes ago, and he'll suddenly launch into his thoughts on that previous question because that's him. He needs time and space to think through it, and he is totally willing to take it, always. Impresses the hell out of me. All right, my dad was a process engineer. He approached his work the same way. He would never just blurt out an answer to give somebody an answer, and if he wasn't ready, he wasn't ready. No arguments, no making up something to say in the moment to make everyone feel better. Just, let me think about that. Right then and there, okay? His thing is like, hey, I understand it's uncomfortable for you people, but I'm taking the time to think about this right now. And the older I get, the more I really admire that. It's like, no, this is how I work. So in a work setting, if you need the time to formulate an answer or to talk yourself out of giving in and going along, you say, well, let me think a little bit more about that. If you have initial thoughts, then you give them, okay? But if you don't, you don't. The point is you got to give yourself space to do it. And the other reason, by the way, to wait, to not react emotionally in the moment is because you'll very likely also beat yourself up afterward for reacting that way. Damn it, I've been practicing all this stuff Joe told me for 3 fucking months and I still can't do it. Why am I still reacting like this? I fail. I'm such a fucking failure. Great. You're just giving yourself one more thing to kick yourself in the ass about. Not helpful, okay? Abandon that shit. It's not about not reacting. I hate that as a goal because it's self-defeating. You're human. You're going to continue to have those feelings. You're going to continue to have those immediate gut reactions, okay? The parts of you that are conditioned that way over years, those neuron trenches dug in your brain I talked about from repeated behavior, they're still going to fire first, and they're going to be miles down the road before you can catch them, all right? That's okay. It's going to be a tough habit to break, and it's also going to take time before you can get ahead of it. You will try and you will fail. But if you deal with those failures, if you go forward and keep trying, I promise you, eventually you will gain control. The worst thing you can do in that moment or after that moment is beat yourself up for going there. It's not about that. It's about, again, Joe can't get off this thing. It's about shortening the distance between that moment of panic and bringing yourself back to center. Shrugging it off, course correcting yourself. Okay, it happened. Fine. Next. Look, the situation is hard enough all by itself, but it's going to be 10 times worse if you continue to live in this place where you beat yourself up for the way that you react. Don't compound what's happening by feeling bad about feeling bad. Give yourself permission. Give yourself a little latitude to change. Giving yourself a little more grace in bad times changes the way that you think about yourself in good times. Okay? Remind yourself that you're wearing clothes that no longer fit you and that you have every right to exchange them for something that fits a hell of a lot better.
You've been listening to Making UX Work with Joe Natoli. Honest talk about the hidden challenges that shape a design career. See you next time. And until then, onward and upward.